welcome back to The Sheep and the Wolf. It's been a while since I last uploaded a video. I think I skipped 2. The reason for that is that I was in a bit of a video making slump as well as reading slump, even though I don't really like to use that word. I wrote a whole blog post about that which you can read on my website, but let's just say I took a break from filming and got some fresh perspective and am now once again inspired to make more videos. So I'm here today to bring you my April wrap-up to talk about the books that I read this month. The first book that I read in April is The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden by Jonasson. I actually started reading this one in March and finished it early in April. This book is about Nombeki, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, who is a black South African girl whose life keeps sort of taking drastic changes because of a combination of luck and wits. I quite enjoyed this book, although not as much as The 100-Year-Old Man, which is Jonasson's other book. I ended up rating it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I kind of don't want to go into it any further because I am planning to do a full book review of this book in May. The next book I read is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. I read this book because my sister asked me to review some books for her school newspaper, and the theme was spring and new beginnings and all that kind of stuff, and I figured this will probably work well. So this is a non-fiction book about Liz Gilbert, who is struggling with depression and an agonizing divorce procedure and general unhappiness, and she decides to make a big change. Once her divorce is final, she decides to basically take a year off life. She spends 4 months in Italy to learn about how to enjoy yourself and how to just give yourself over to pleasure without feeling guilty, and also eating a lot of ice cream. And then 4 months in India to learn about introspection and meditation and kind of the more spiritual side of life. And then she spends 4 months in Bali, Indonesia to kind of learn how to balance those 2 aspects of her life and her personality. I had already seen the film and I quite enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away by it, but I definitely didn't dislike it either. And I kind of feel the same about the book. Sometimes it's a bit heavy for my taste, but then sometimes it's a bit too cavalier, so I suppose that provides a good balance. The thing I enjoyed most was the contact that Liz has with other people that she meets. She makes a lot of new friends and they all have interesting backstories and all kind of add a bit to her story. I ended up rating this book 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I'm planning to do a book to film review, which is something that I also did for The 100-Year-Old Man, which I just mentioned. I don't know when this is gonna happen, but it's something that I'd like to do. Next, I read The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I must admit that the main reason that I wanted to read this book is because it's set in the Netherlands. The book is set in 1668, which is pretty much right in the middle of the Dutch Golden Age. It takes place in Amsterdam, which was doing extremely well. It was arguably the most influential and well-known and important trading centre of Europe at that time. The story is about a girl named Nella Ortman who moves to Amsterdam from the countryside after her wedding to a wealthy merchant. He gives her a miniature of the house they live in as a wedding gift, and she employs a miniaturist to furnish it. But the thing is that the miniaturist doesn't always seem to stick to Nella's commissions, but instead makes other pieces that seem to convey messages to Nella. Meanwhile, a lot of other mysteries and secrets and intrigue are going on. I have mixed feelings about this book. Once I finished it, I was okay with it and even quite liked it, but while I was in the middle of it, there were definitely some parts that frustrated me. There are a lot of dead ends and red herrings spread throughout the story to make you, question everything. And I can see why those would work sometimes as a plot device, but I feel like in this book nothing happens for like 2/3 and then everything happens in the final third of the story, and personally I don't really like that. I rated it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but I do have to say that I can imagine if I were to reread this, I would like it more. Next, I read a Dutch book named Jacoba, Dochter van Holland by Simone van Vlugt, who is the same author who wrote the historical novel that I read last month. This book tells part of the life story of Jacoba van Beieren, or Jacqueline as she is called in English, who was the Duchess of Holland and some other areas in the 15th century. I won't go into the historical situation too much, mostly because it's very complicated. The Netherlands wasn't a country at that time, let alone a kingdom. So this book describes 8 years of Jacqueline's life starting in 1417 and ending in 1425. Politically, these are very important years because a lot is happening, not only in the Low Countries, but also in the rest of Europe, particularly in England and France, because those are participating heavily in the 100 Years' War. I really like this book and I wasn't necessarily expecting to. I borrowed it from my flatmate who didn't really like it, so I didn't get my hopes up. Simone van de Vlugt is mostly known as an author of kind of middle grade historical books, and I feel like this one struck a good balance between that and an adult historical novel, which can be kind of boring. I also really like Jacqueline as a character. I mean, she's a very famous historical figure over here, but I didn't really know much about her and about her life and about, you know, who was she and what did she rule, basically. But I really liked how she's made into a believable character. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I don't think it's been translated into English, but if you are Dutch and you like historical novels, I definitely recommend this one. Next, I read The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman with illustrations by Chris Riddell. This book has been in my possession for a while, but I just never got around to reading it until recently, a few days ago, when I decided it was time to pick it up. In my TBR for this month, I said that The Sleeper and the Spindle is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, which is true, but I didn't realise that it also incorporates elements of Snow White, such as, you know, Snow White. I can't really say any more about this story because it's short and I would be giving the plot away, and I don't want to do that. But suffice it to say that it's a cool and slightly darker twist on the original fairy tale. I really liked it, but I did rate it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because even though I loved it, I was expecting to find more of Neil Gaiman's style in there. I thought it was a bit bland at times. The illustrations and the general look of the book are definitely gorgeous though, so that really made up for a lot. Finally, I read these 2 books, Quidditch Through the Ages and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by J.K. Rowling. I'd already read these in Dutch. I own them in Dutch and I wanted to own them in English as well, obviously, because I want to have sort of the complete collection. But the reason I decided to read them now is because I did the whole Harry Potter reread thing, and then I rewatched all the films, and then to sort of complete the story, I decided to reread these as well, also because I hadn't ever read them in English before. I'm doing this thing where I'm basically going through my bookshelves, and every time I find a book that I haven't read or haven't read in that particular language, I have to read it. Now obviously these are very short, I finished both of them within a day. I do have to say that I like the Quidditch one much better. It's more interesting, it's funnier, and it's just generally more appealing to me. So those are the books I read in April. I think I did pretty well considering I took a break from reading and making videos for about 2 weeks, so that's half the month. And I mean, I'm doing well. I'm 9 books ahead of my Goodreads goal, so I'm pretty confident that I will make that. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video and I will see you again next time. Bye!